All right, well, here we go. We jump into our first solo broadcast or podcast of the year. And what I'm going to look at, and it's designed as we're doing this now, obviously it's January 2023, that the market's a bit slower and Januaries are slower than most, unless you have in fact planned to do the opposite and you're steaming along. And if you've done that, congratulations. Most people haven't, unfortunately, and they'll repeat that pattern again next year. So just a hint there. But if it is a bit slower, here's a great thing we can do now. You can stop or not stop, but you can actually slow yourself down. And as you're doing any process in your real estate business, start to quantify it. Start to map it out. Start to look at what the process is and put it down on paper. Now, what we're going to do with this is we're going to create a checklist. And along the way, a couple of amazing things are going to happen. So I know already you're thinking, oh, this is going to take more time, but I'll demonstrate to you and hopefully can convince you at the end that it's going to be a lot faster, in particular, faster for your growth. So we're going to take a process. Now, it might be prospecting. It might be personal branding, including that would be your DLE. So just a note on that, if you've got delivering DLEs under prospecting, I think move it across on the ledger to a different column and call it personal profile, personal branding. That will support your prospecting. But your prospecting obviously is connections with people. And you're either talking to them on the phone, be they your database or contacts, or you're meeting them as you're going through with door knocks. Fantastic. Getting there through your farm area, or it might be that you're meeting them in the suburb or in your community. So that's clearly your prospecting, and then your DLEs on the side. So you might have a heading prospecting. You might have personal branding, personal marketing, obviously getting the listing, running the campaign, and then post-campaign. Now, under each of those, create a checklist. You're looking at the process you currently follow, and you're trying to write it down in sequence. And there's going to be some great advantages from doing this. Now, as we do that, we're actually looking immediately and doing an audit of what do we do. And you're having a look and saying, look, is this worth doing? Am I doing the wrong thing? Am I doing the right thing? So you're checking and rechecking as you go. Am I doing the right thing? Am I doing the quantity of it? Am I doing it in the right sequence? Am I always doing it? Or am I skipping it sometimes? Now, if you're skipping it or you're not doing it, it may not be important. You may actually be able to cross it off your list. It might just be something you thought was good. Something that suited someone else doesn't actually suit you. So maybe remove it. But the ones that are critical and giving you a return and giving you value on what you're doing and providing to your customer and client, then those ones must be in there. So now we're going through on that checklist. And now what I'm going to suggest after that, and you can do it now because the process is slower. Time is slow. If you're doing a listing right now, you're not doing 10 in a week. You might be doing 1 in a week. So now take the time, map out exactly what you did. And then you're going to check and say, is that what I'm going to do next time? So you'll map it out, you'll check it, and you'll recheck it. That's your audit of it as you go through to make sure that you're always doing the right thing as we roll. Now, as you look at the actions that are sitting in there, and you've got constant and never ending improvement as you go through. But as you're looking at those actions, you're looking at the critical ones also. And if I just step out of this part and I'll just step off to one side, literally, and we're going to think about now the 80-20 rule, Pareto. So most people would call it the 80-20 rule. There's an error in calling it that, and there's an error in the assumption. What it really is vital few, trivial many. Vital few, trivial many. Now you've created that list. There's only a few points on there that are vital, and they give you the greatest return. This is where people say 80-20. 20% of what you did gives you 80% of the return. Now, when I first, I spent years thinking I understood that and thought it summed up to 100. It doesn't. It's the vital few, trivial many. A lot of the things you do won't give you a great return. Some are hygiene, admin must be done. You can't drop it out. But they're not going to give you the greatest return. So don't think about it as 80-20. Think about it this way. It might be 95-10. So 10% of what you do gives you 95% of your reward or your outcome. So don't get hung up on that it's just 80-20. It isn't. It's vital few. There's only a few things there that are absolutely critical. Many things are trivial. Some you'll need to do. Some, I think, when you do this checklist, you can remove as you go through. So I'm looking at that as I go. So just to step back now, we've created a list, or I've suggested you consider creating a list of what you do and checking the list and auditing the list and changing the list and refining the list and getting it better and better every time. Now, if you think that will take you time, it will, but it's got to save you time because you're not going to have some of those errors repeat in your system. Now, if I step in the other direction, I think about Deming. Deming, statistician, he was brought in by the American government to Japan after World War II. And they said, hey, we're going to rebuild this country. And if you can picture the Japanese post-World War II, 60s, 70s in particular, took off. Electronics cars were coming out of Japan at a great rate. Now, prior to that was Deming. And what Deming did, and one thing I love about Deming was he looked at the process and removing error in the process. He said most businesses and most organizations and factories for what he was dealing with were looking at the people, motivate the people, encourage the people, manage the people. And Deming said, no, if there's an error in your system, it will just keep repeating no matter what you do with the person. He's got a great example of that, and we might actually do that next time. So you're looking at your process, refining your process, and then whoever you put in there will get it right as they go through. Now, so you've got that. You understand vital few, trivial many. You understand Deming. Make sure, or you've had a bit of an insight into it. You make sure that the process works, and then you can apply the people. Now, outcomes of this. Your service to your client and customer will be better. And if you're going to get the listing or sell the property, it's your confidence around doing that which will give you the listing. If you sit in front of the client and you are bulletproof and absolutely certain that this process gives you a superior outcome than anybody else, then they'll sense that and they'll believe that. And that's part of what you're selling when you go for a listing. And that's the lifeblood of our business, of our industry as we go through. Now, here's the real upside. If you need an upside even more from just doing that, and here's the real upside. If you want growth, you're going to have to expand. And probably what holds most people back from expanding is they don't know what they're going to do with the person they put in the team. And there is a fear of that, even if they don't front up and admit that to themselves. I know when I started and I had a PA, I wasn't sure what my PA should do. So I had to go, Sam, I think it's this, but then please do everything else. And Sam had to learn the job. Now, I think if I was starting today, I'd be looking at the business saying the administration and the support in there is pretty straightforward. That is at a quality and a quantity enough to service my client and get the job done without becoming trivial with what I do. It's just vital. Now, if I'm going to add somebody, they're going to have to add business to my business. So it's going to be a person that comes on as a junior, and they are going to prospect, generate leads, which they'll have no hope of securing themselves because they don't know how to sell a house, let alone list one. And if you can't sell one, nobody's going to list it with you. And then I'll come in at that point and I'll list it, and then that'll be their growth going forward. They'll see how to sell them. So if I want to grow, I now have a checklist showing that person joining me exactly how I want it done and how I've done it and how it works. So there's the upside. You now have the formula for growth in the future, which is quantify what you do right now, map it, process it, make sure it is absolutely right. It has your style sitting in there. Then you can bring a person in and you say, there's the checklist. Sit down. All I want you to do today is read the checklist. And all I want you to do tomorrow is question me on the checklist, because day 3, you're on the ground doing it. And then if you can see a better way of doing it, come back and put your notes on the checklist and we'll refine it as we go. So that's my start for you guys for 2023 as we go. Use the aspect that the market is a little bit slower now. You won't have the volume coming through. So it is your time to tidy up your process. Then you can deal with volume as it comes through because you're repeating your process each time. And also, now you've got the insight into giving yourself confidence for growth in the future. You know exactly what that associate will do if they join you. So there we go, short and sharp. Hope that's been helpful. I haven't even had a sip of my tea. I'll get into that next. And I wish you all the best for 2023. We're going to see you every week. One week I'm going to be on an interview podcast, and the next week it's going to be like this, direct to agents, direct to salespeople, trying to help you with the real estate business and some thoughts that I can give to you and allow you to work with. So there we go. Ciao.